You wake up, you know what to do. The plan is clear, the tools are in place, but something pulls you back. You delay, you distract, you scroll. And by the end of the day, you've betrayed yourself. Again. But here's the terrifying part. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you lack ambition. It's because you're wired to stay exactly where you are. Let me explain. There's a war happening inside you, between the conscious mind that wants change and the subconscious programming built to resist it. And the subconscious is winning. It wins by being silent. It wins by sounding reasonable. It tells you things like, you'll start tomorrow. You need more clarity first. You're just not ready yet. But that's a lie. You're not stuck because you don't know what to do. You're stuck because doing it would destroy the identity your brain is addicted to, the identity of the overthinker, the procrastinator, the one who's almost ready. Every time you try to step forward, your brain pulls you back to safety, not because it's smart, but because it's afraid. Afraid of change, afraid of success, afraid of becoming someone it doesn't yet believe you are. And here's the truth that should hit like a brick. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your subconscious programming. Until that program is rewritten, you'll keep repeating the same loop. Different day, same hesitation, same unfinished dreams. So the real question isn't what should I do? You already know the answer. The question is, who's really in control of me when I don't act? You weren't born procrastinating. You weren't born afraid to act. You were programmed. From the moment you opened your eyes, your mind started recording everything. Not with logic, with emotion. And every look, tone, gesture became code. A mental script you didn't write, but one you followed for years. And think about it. Maybe you were told to be careful. Maybe failure was punished, not explored. Maybe your parents hesitated in front of life, and you downloaded their fear like software. And now, you hesitate too, you overthink, you delay. Because that's what the script says. This script doesn't yell, it whispers. It tells you things like that. You need to be perfect. If you fail, you'll look stupid. Don't risk it, it's safer here. And without realizing it, you obey. And here's the dangerous truth. Most of your adult behavior isn't choice, and it's repetition. You're not lazy. You're just running a program written by fear, repetition, and survival instincts. And unless you update that script, you'll keep reliving the same loops. That's why you can read books, watch videos, take notes, and still fall back into hesitation, because you're learning with your conscious mind, but the script is buried deeper. And it doesn't care what you say you want, it only cares about what feels familiar, even if that familiar thing is suffering. So ask yourself, what if nothing's wrong with you? What if you're just stuck in someone else's story? And more importantly, are you ready to start writing your own? You've heard it before, step out of your comfort zone. But what if I told you that comfort is a trap, a beautifully disguised prison, engineered by your brain to keep you small? See, your mind doesn't care if you're fulfilled. It doesn't care if you reach your potential. It only cares about one thing: survival. And to the subconscious, familiar equals safe. So even if your comfort zone is filled with anxiety, with regret, with self-loathing, your mind prefers it, because at least it knows it. Unknown equals danger. New habits, bold actions, tough decisions, those trigger internal alarms. Your body tightens, your breath shortens, your thoughts race, and the brain says, let's go back to what we know. So you retreat, not because you're weak, but because your brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do: protect you. The problem? Your brain doesn't know the difference between emotional discomfort and actual physical danger. It reacts to public speaking the same way it would react to a lion in the wild. Adrenaline, cortisol, fear. So every time you try to level up, to speak, to start, to move, your body screams, don't. And unless you understand this response, you'll keep obeying it. You'll keep mistaking that signal for truth. But here's the twist. The comfort zone doesn't protect you. It traps you. It kills your momentum. It rewards hesitation with temporary relief and punishes courage with fear. So if you've ever felt like you're dying inside because you're not growing, you're right, you are, because life begins at the edge of discomfort, and everything you want is currently outside the perimeter of what your brain calls safe. You keep waiting to feel ready. You keep waiting for that burst, that lightning strike of motivation to finally move you. But here's the truth. Motivation is a liar. It doesn't show up when you need it. It shows up when you don't. And when you actually need to act. It's almost never there. Why? Because motivation isn't a trigger. It's a result. It doesn't lead to action. Action creates motivation. Think of the last time you forced yourself to do something. Go to the gym, send that message, clean the room. You didn't want to, but once you started, your energy shifted, momentum kicked in, and suddenly, it wasn't so hard anymore. That's the secret your brain doesn't want you to know. It's not about waiting to feel like it. It's about moving anyway. But here's why that's so difficult. Your brain has weaponized comfort. It rewards you for stalling. Every time you delay action, you get a little dopamine hit. The comfort of not risking failure. The relief of not being judged. The pleasure of doing nothing at all. So you scroll, you snack, you escape, and you tell yourself, I'll do it when I feel inspired. But inspiration doesn't come, because you're training your brain to expect reward without effort. That's why high performers do what others won't. They act without feeling like it. They understand the truth. Discipline beats motivation every time. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is mechanical. And when you shift from waiting to doing, your brain follows. So next time you hear that whisper, I'm not in the mood, you answer back, that's irrelevant, because success doesn't care how you feel, it only cares if you move. There's a moment you've lived 1,000 times that you set a goal, you feel excited, you make a plan, and then nothing. The moment passes, the plan fades, the loop begins again. You think it's just bad habits, but it's not. It's architecture. Your brain is running loops. Invisible safety scripts designed to keep things the same. These loops were built slowly, a fear ignored, a failure misinterpreted, a tiny hesitation repeated enough times to become truth. Now, your mind auto-rejects discomfort. You feel resistance before you even take a step. It's not conscious, it's patterned. Let's break it down. Your brain is a prediction machine. It doesn't want growth, it wants certainty. So every time you try something new, your subconscious runs a quick scan. Have we done this before? Did we survive? Was it painful? If the answers feel uncertain, your brain activates a trap. You suddenly feel tired, distracted, unfocused, and you think it's your fault, but it's not weakness, it's wiring. The brain uses mental loops like, what if I fail? It's probably not the right time. I'll wait until I feel more confident. These thoughts don't show up by accident. They're automated defenses, installed by past pain, reinforced by repetition. The irony, your brain builds these walls to protect you, but in doing so, it blocks everything you want. Progress, growth, fulfillment, all trapped behind a security system built from old fears, and unless you break that system, you'll keep looping. Different year, same outcomes. So if you ever wonder, why do I keep ending up here? Look at the loop, then choose to break it. Because until you act against the pattern, you are owned by it. Here's the harsh truth no one talks about. You will never outperform your identity. Not your goals, not your intelligence, not your willpower, only what you believe you are. And that belief, whether conscious or hidden, controls everything. See, you can set a goal to be productive, but if deep down you still identify as the lazy one, your brain will sabotage every move you make. It's not sabotage out of malice, it's sabotage out of loyalty. to the person you think you are. Your subconscious craves consistency, and it will fight like hell to keep you aligned with the story you've accepted about yourself. So if your internal identity says, "I always mess things up," "I'm not good with pressure," "I'm not the type to follow through," then guess what? You'll unconsciously create results that match that script every single time. And here's the trap. Every time you behave according to that story, you reinforce it. You make it stronger. You prove it right. Until the identity becomes a cage you don't even realize you're inside. The scary part, it feels like truth. It doesn't sound like a belief, it sounds like a fact. That's just the way I am. But it's not, it's just a role you've rehearsed for so long you forgot you were acting. You are not your patterns, you are not your past, you are not your internal narrator. You're just someone who learned to believe those things. And the good news? What was learned can be unlearned, and a new identity can be installed. Not through hope, not through affirmations alone, but through action that contradicts the old story again and again and again, because identity is not fixed, it's forged, one decision at a time. You think you're being logical. You think you're being smart. You tell yourself, "I just need a little more time. I'll start once things calm down. It's better to wait until I'm fully ready." Sounds reasonable, right? But it's a trap. A beautifully disguised stall tactic, engineered by your brain to protect you from the unknown. It's not logic, it's fear. Wearing a suit and ties. See, your brain knows you'll resist fear, but it also knows you'll obey logic. So it feeds you perfectly crafted justifications. You need more research. It's not the perfect moment. You're being responsible by waiting. But here's the brutal truth. Delay is the most dangerous form of self-sabotage, because it doesn't feel like sabotage, and it feels mature, it feels safe, it feels smart. But the cost? Momentum dies, clarity fades, confidence evaporates, and your dreams rot slowly while you're waiting for conditions that will never come. There is no perfect time, there is no ideal clarity, there is no magical burst of readiness. What you have is now, and that's enough. If you move, clarity comes. If you act, courage grows. If you start, momentum builds. But none of that can happen while you're still convincing yourself that hesitation is wisdom. It's not. It's fear pretending to be logic. And until you see it for what it is, you'll keep losing time in the name of being smart. So ask yourself, is your delay really preparation? Or is it just disguised protection from discomfort? Because one leads to growth, the other leads to regret. Your brain isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do, keep you alive. But here's the twist. To your brain, new equals danger. That's why every time you try to evolve, to launch, to speak up, to act, you feel resistance. Not because you're weak, because you're human. Let's get clinical for a moment. The part of your brain that wants change, that's the prefrontal cortex. It plans, it visualizes, it dreams. But the part that actually runs the show is older, primitive, emotional. It's called the amygdala, and its job is simple. Detect threat, avoid risk. So when you decide to step into the unknown, guess what happens? The amygdala panics. It floods your system with cortisol, adrenaline, fight or flight mode. Your heart races, your thoughts scatter, your vision narrows, and just like that, you're no longer chasing growth, you're chasing safety. But here's the trick. The threat isn't real. There's no lion, no fire, no cliff edge, just a tough conversation, a new habit, a bold choice. But your brain doesn't know the difference. It reacts to uncertainty the same way it reacts to danger. That's the biology of resistance. It's not emotional weakness, it's not mindset failure, it's chemical programming, and it's ancient. So when you feel that internal pushback, don't shame yourself, don't overthink it. Just recognize it for what it is. A system glitch, a biological leftover from a time when survival really did depend on staying still. But you're not in the jungle anymore, you're in a battle of identity. And the enemy isn't out there, it's in your wiring. And here's the best part. The brain can be rewired. Neuroplasticity. It's real. It's proven. And it means this. The resistance is beatable, but only if you stop waiting for it to disappear and start moving through it. You now know the script is fake. You know the loops are automated. You know the fear is biological. So, how do you break it? Not with motivation, not with vision boards, not with more thinking. You break it by acting against it, deliberately, repeatedly, ruthlessly. Here's the truth. Your brain doesn't change when you understand something. It changes when you experience something new. Enough times for the old wiring to die. That's neuroplasticity. And it doesn't care what you know. It only cares what you do. So how do you rewire? You start with the opposite action. If your pattern is hesitation, move instantly. If your pattern is silence, speak first. If your pattern is overthinking, act before you feel ready. Why? Because that's how you disrupt the loop. Your brain is like a river. Thoughts flow along the deepest grooves, and those grooves were carved by repetition. So when you do something different, even once, you carve a new neural path. Do it again and the path deepens. Do it again and the old one begins to erode. Do it again and your identity starts to shift. But here's the catch. The first reps will feel fake. You'll feel like an imposter, like you're forcing it. And that's exactly how it's supposed to feel. You're not faking it. You're overriding a script that wasn't even yours to begin with. The discomfort, that's your mind adapting. The resistance, that's the old code trying to stay alive. Ignore the noise, honor the mission, because every time you move in defiance of your programming, you reclaim a piece of your mind. And that's how you break the script. Not with hope, with war. Tiny, daily, deliberate rebellions against the version of you that was never real to begin with. Your old identity wasn't chosen. It was installed, piece by piece, memory by memory, belief by belief. But here's the power most people never claim. You can choose a new one. Not with affirmations, not with empty hype, but through embodiment. If you want to stop being the person who always hesitates, you don't think positive. You become the person who acts, even in doubt. It starts with one brutal decision. Who are you now? Not who do you want to be, not who do you hope to become, but who are you starting today? Because identity isn't created in reflection. It's created in motion. You choose it, then you live it, before you feel worthy of it. That's how reprogramming works. The subconscious doesn't respond to ideas. It responds to evidence. It needs to see you doing what the new version of you would do. It needs proof, repetition, emotion. So here's the formula. Define the identity. Not vague, not generic. Be surgical, be clear. I am the kind of person who takes fast, bold action even under pressure. Interrupt the old pattern. Notice it, stop it, replace it. Every time your mind says, let's wait, you move. That is the override. Reinforce the new self with behavior. Act as if it's already true, not in fantasy, in practice. And something incredible will happen. At first it feels fake, then it feels forced, then it feels natural. Until one day you do the thing you used to fear, automatically, without hesitation, without story, because it's who you are now. That's not inspiration, that's neural reprogramming. So if you want to become the new you, don't visualize it, behave it. Every single day, there's a moment. It doesn't come with fireworks, no music, no spotlight, just silence. You don't notice it at first, but one day you wake up and realize the old voice is quiet. The hesitation you once called normal, gone. The excuses that ruled your mornings, dissolved. And in their place, movement, clarity, stillness. That's the moment it clicks. When you stop forcing change, because change has already happened. But here's the truth nobody tells you. That moment only arrives after the storm, after the internal war, after dozens of days where you showed up while your mind screamed to stop. Because real transformation doesn't feel good in the beginning. It feels like death. The death of your comfort zone, the death of your false limitations, the death of who you used to be. You'll want to run back. You'll tell yourself, this isn't me. It's too hard. What if I'm faking it? But if you stay with it, if you keep moving while the resistance screams, something shifts. One action becomes two, two becomes five, and before you know it, you're behaving like the person you used to dream of becoming. And the best part? It no longer feels like effort, it feels like alignment. You're no longer pushing upstream, you've become the current. That's the moment it clicks. Not when the world applauds, not when someone else validates you, but when you see yourself acting in a way that shocks the old version of you, and it feels easy, because the new script has taken over. The old identity has collapsed, and you're no longer trying to change. You already have it. Your past feels real, permanent, undeniable. The failures, the patterns, the missed chances, they sit on your shoulders like bricks. And every time you try to rise, they whisper, "You've tried this before." Remember how it ended? This is just who you are. But here's what they don't want you to realize, that your past is not a prophecy, it's a pattern, and patterns can be broken. You are not your habits, you are not your lowest moment, you are not the version of you that couldn't get out of bed. That ghost doesn't get to define you. Your brain stores the past like a map. It shows you where you've been, but not where you're going. Yet we treat it like law. We say, "I've always been like this, I've never been good at that. This is just how I am." But those aren't facts, they're echoes, old stories, repeated so often they start to sound like truth. And if you don't challenge them, you'll live inside them. But here's the shift. Your past is just data, not destiny. You made decisions when you didn't know better. You reacted with the tools you had. You survived what tried to break you. And now you get to choose what to keep and what to leave behind. The shame? Optional. The label? Breakable. The identity? Rewritable. Because the past only wins if you carry it forward. But you're not that version anymore. You've seen the script. You've challenged the loops. You've moved in spite of fear. And every step forward is a vote for a new story. So no, you don't have to forget your past, but you don't have to obey it either. You are not what happened to you. You are what you decide next. You've been at war, maybe for years, maybe your whole life. A war between the part of you that knows what you're capable of and the part that keeps pulling you back. The resistance, the voice of fear, the need to stay small, stay safe, stay hidden. And for so long you thought that was just you. But now you know better. You've seen the code, you've exposed the pattern, you've watched the false logic crumble under the weight of your new awareness. And something feels different now. It's quieter, not silent yet, but the noise isn't as loud. Because here's the truth. You don't have to fight forever. The inner war doesn't last forever. Only until the new identity becomes natural, until action replaces avoidance, until motion becomes memory. That's the point where everything softens, where growth isn't war, it's rhythm, it's alignment. You'll still hear echoes of the old voice, it'll still try to sneak in. Are you sure you've changed? What if you fall back? This won't last. But now you don't listen to it because now you have proof. You've seen yourself act in ways you never used to. You've broken cycles that once felt unbreakable. You've moved in the face of fear, not once, but over and over again. And that repetition, that's the new programming. That's what wins the war. Not a single battle, not a single breakthrough, but the daily reclaiming of your own mind. So if it feels like peace is starting to come, trust that. It means the old you is losing power. It means the new one is taking root. And no, you're not done yet, but you're no longer surviving. You're building, not just a new mindset, but a new reality. Everyone wants a breakthrough. Few are ready for the maintenance, because transformation isn't a moment, it's a practice. a daily recalibration, a choice you make when no one's watching, a quiet discipline that slowly becomes who you are. You don't just become focused, you practice focusing. You don't just wake up confident, you train that confidence by acting boldly when fear still lingers. You don't master your mind in one video, one book, one 5 a.m. alarm. You master it in the micro decisions. Do I scroll or do I start? Do I speak up or shrink back? Do I act even though I don't feel ready? These are your reps. Every time you move with intention, you send a signal to your subconscious. This is who we are now. And the subconscious listens, not to theory, not to declarations, but to behavior. So here's the shift. Control isn't about domination, it's not force, it's consistency. It's returning again and again to the thoughts, habits, and rituals that reflect your chosen identity. You'll slip, you'll forget. You'll have days when the old loops try to drag you back. That's normal. But control isn't about never falling. It's about not staying down. It's about catching the pattern mid-loop and choosing differently. Because repetition is how the old identity was built, and repetition is how you replace it. So ask yourself, what's one action today that future you will recognize as part of the new code? Then do it. Not because it's easy, but because you're in training. Because now you understand the mind is programmable and you are the one holding the keys. Reality feels fixed, rigid, like something that happens to you. But here's the twist most people never see. Reality is filtered, and the filter is your mind. You don't see the world as it is, you see it as you are. And if your mind has been programmed for fear, for failure, for waiting, then that's all it knows how to notice. That's why you can miss opportunities that are right in front of you, not because you're blind, but because your filter isn't tuned for them. This is the job of your RAS, reticular activating system. It decides what's important, what breaks through the noise, what matters. And guess what trains it? Your thoughts, your identity, your expectations. So if you walk through life expecting rejection, your mind will spotlight every frown, every delay, every silence as proof that you don't belong. But shift your identity, and you shift the filter. Start believing you belong. Start acting like someone who succeeds. Start rehearsing wins instead of failures. And your brain will begin to highlight different data. You'll spot chances you used to miss. You'll hear yes where you once assumed no. You'll feel doors where you only saw walls. Not because the world changed, but because you did. This is what most people call luck. It's not luck, it's filtration. A subconscious tuned for growth instead of survival. And that's what you're building now. Not just a better mindset, but a better reality engine. Because when the identity changes, the thoughts follow, the habits follow, the environment responds. And suddenly, the world feels different. Not because it is, because your mind finally lets you see what's been there all along. Your identity isn't a label, it's a loop. Thoughts create actions. Actions create feedback. Feedback shapes identity. And identity fuels your next thought. It's a closed system. And here's the kicker. Most people never interrupt it. They live in loops that were written for them. By fear, by parents, by society, by failure. I procrastinate. So they delay, so they feel like a procrastinator. So they keep saying, I'm just like this. Loop reinforced, loop strengthened, loop becomes identity. But what if you flipped it? What if you started acting like the person you want to become? Before your mind believes it. You'd trigger a new loop. I acted boldly today. Now you feel like someone who's bold. So tomorrow, you expect yourself to act with courage. So you do it again. And just like that, identity shifts from memory to evidence. Because your brain doesn't trust dreams, it trusts proof. And proof isn't found in vision boards, it's found in your next decision. So what does the identity loop need to solidify? Two things: consistency. One win won't change you, but 5 days of wins, 10, 30. Suddenly the loop rewrites itself. Emotional charge. The brain remembers what's felt. So don't just do the new behavior. Feel the power of doing it, celebrate it, lock it in. That's how you become someone new. Not through waiting, not through wishing, but by feeding the loop with action, with intensity, and with enough repetition to overwrite the old script. The old loop will try to fight back, but you don't fight it with force. You starve it, and you feed the new one until it feeds you. Logic changes nothing. It explains, it justifies, it makes you feel smart. But it doesn't move you, not like emotion does, because your beliefs, the real, deep, unshakable ones, weren't formed through spreadsheets. They were formed in moments that hurt, moments that lit your nervous system on fire. That breakup, that humiliation, that failure in front of everyone. You didn't just remember it, you felt it. And that feeling burned in like gravity. That's how belief works. It's emotional, it's experiential. And until you understand that, you'll keep trying to think your way to a new self, and failing. So how do you change belief? You create new emotional evidence, moments that are so intense, so surprising, they make your subconscious pay attention. You speak when your throat is dry. You act when your hands are shaking. You stand tall when everything in you wants to hide. And in that moment, your brain records a new truth. Maybe I'm not who I thought I was. That moment has emotional weight, and weight equals gravity, and gravity pulls. It starts pulling new behavior, new thoughts, new self-perception. This is why change can't be quiet. It must be felt. It must be embodied. Because without emotion, a habit is just noise. But pair the habit with feeling, and it becomes identity. So the next time you move against fear, don't numb it. Don't suppress it. Lean into it. That discomfort is data. That adrenaline is an engraving tool. And if you stay present in the storm, your subconscious will rewrite the code for you. One high-voltage action can collapse 10 years of false identity, not because it makes sense, but because it makes impact. Change isn't always gradual. Sometimes it snaps. You resist, you overthink, you delay. Then one day, you do something different. You walk into the fear, you move through the wall, and everything collapses. That's a collapse point. It feels sudden, but it's not. It's the result of every micro-decision you made before that moment. Every time you moved despite resistance. Every time you stayed conscious when the old loop tried to take over. Pressure builds, tension rises. The old identity clings for survival. Then crack. The loop breaks. The script fails to execute. And a new path opens up. These moments feel like lightning. They split you. They rewire something deep. And afterward, you're not quite the same. But here's what most people don't realize. Collapse points can be engineered. You don't have to wait for a crisis. You can create the pressure. You can raise the stakes. You can design a moment so uncomfortable, so bold, that the old code can't survive it. Here's how. Create tension. Put yourself in situations where the old you would freeze. Book the call. Say yes publicly. Set the date. Refuse escape. Don't leave a back door. No delay, no excuse, no delete button. Act under pressure. Let your body shake, let your voice crack, but do it anyway. Because collapse doesn't happen in theory, it happens in the field in real time, in moments where comfort is no longer an option. And once it breaks, once the old pattern fails to protect you, your mind updates itself. The belief shatters, the identity cracks, and the space for a new version finally opens. Not slowly, not someday, instantly. That's the power of collapse points. They feel like chaos, but they're actually rebirth. Progress isn't linear, it's exponential. At first it crawls, you push but nothing moves, you act but nothing changes. You start to wonder, is this even working? Then something clicks, a small win, A decision you didn't delay, a moment you chose action over avoidance. It feels small, forgettable, but it's everything. Because that moment is feedback, and feedback is fuel. The subconscious doesn't believe words, it believes results. When it sees evidence that you moved, that you survived, that you didn't fall apart, it begins to update your internal image. Maybe I can handle this. Maybe I'm not who I thought I was. And from that shift, something powerful emerges: velocity. You start stacking wins, small ones, fast ones, momentum builds. Now you're no longer hoping for change, you're proving it, daily. And every win reinforces the new loop. Identity, behavior, feedback, stronger identity. It becomes self-reinforcing, automatic, addictive. This is why you don't need giant breakthroughs, you need stacked proof. One focused hour, one hard conversation, one time you don't hit snooze. That's enough to trigger motion. And motion is magnetic. The more you act, the more capable you feel. The more capable you feel, the bolder your actions become. Soon you're not pushing anymore, you're being pulled by the gravity of your own behavior. This is how belief becomes biology, how the mind begins to trust you again, how your nervous system says, we're not faking it anymore, we are this now. So no, don't chase perfection, chase evidence, because proof, even in microscopic form, creates power. And power compounds. There comes a moment, quiet, almost unnoticeable, where the change is no longer exciting, because it's normal. You don't celebrate every action. You don't overthink the next move, you just do it. This is where true transformation lives, not in fireworks, not in viral highs, but in stability. You wake up and execute, you say no without guilt, you rest without shame, you move without negotiation. It's not that the old identity is gone, it's that it doesn't drive anymore. It may whisper, but it no longer commands, and that's the new normal. But here's the part most people miss. Success is easier to sabotage once it feels normal, because now your brain forgets how far you've come. It starts asking questions like, do I still need to do all this? Can't I just skip today? Was the old me really that bad? This is the seduction of regression, not loud but soft, not obvious but deadly. So how do you protect the new normal? You treat it like a living system, you feed it. Rituals that reinforce identity, movement that strengthens clarity, space for silence and reflection. You respect it by guarding your environment, by protecting your inputs, by saying no to what drains your signal, because maintenance isn't boring, it's sacred. You don't stop sharpening the sword just because the enemy stopped attacking. You sharpen it because peace must be defended. So if you've arrived at the new normal, celebrate it, anchor it, protect it, because this isn't the finish line, it's the foundation. You're not just acting different now, you're being different, and the old you, he's not coming back, unless you invite him. Real change doesn't come with applause, it doesn't knock on your door, it doesn't scream, look at me now. It slips in quietly and leaves evidence. You don't realize it in the moment, you're too busy moving, showing up, living. But one day, you catch yourself doing something you never used to do, something simple. You set a boundary without guilt. You take action without overthinking. You say no without explanation. And it hits you, wait, I used to freeze here. That's the quiet proof. It doesn't come from others, it comes from contrast between who you were and who you've become. And it doesn't feel dramatic, it feels right. Because real growth isn't loud, it's calm, stable, aligned, no adrenaline, no hype. Just a steady knowing, this is who I am now. The world might not notice it. They'll just see you handling pressure better, recovering faster, smiling more. They'll say, well, you've changed. But the truth is deeper. You didn't just change, you came home to the version of you that always existed underneath the noise. And now, you don't need to prove it, you just live it. Because transformation isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were before the fear, before the conditioning, before the loop took over. And the proof? It's in the moment you no longer ask, "Can I really do this?" Because now you already are.